We interview everyday people like yourself that uplift and empower, shifting the narrative of news from a traditional negative experience to more impactful.
I was in a state of denial. I didn't really understand what was going on. I'd never heard of this illness before. I was quite fit, athletic, strong, healthy, looked after myself, worked out before, did all the right things, let's say, and to have something like this just happen out of the blue, for someone, let's say, quote unquote, like me, who actually took care of themselves, I couldn't believe it, really. I couldn't accept it. I couldn't understand it. And I remember when I just woke up in ICU, and only my eyes were moving, the rest of my body was completely shut down. That there were so many doctors around my hospital bed. There was beeping machines, wires, tubes, the works, all around me and in me, through me. I had no idea what was going on. And I think I was just in a state of non-belief, really. And yeah, I just struggled to accept that this was the situation I found myself in. And that held me back in terms of my progress for quite some time.
So how did you find out that this is, I don't know the correct pronunciation, but how did you know that this is something that you had?
So it literally happened overnight. So the day before, it was a Saturday, I think the 14th or the 13th of July in 2019, I had actually played a game for my team, and I had quite a good game. I had a long day on the field. I don't know how familiar you are with cricket, but I did quite a lot in that game. Let's say I had like a triple-double game, if I put it into basketball terms, And I went to bed that evening, woke up on Sunday morning. And when I woke up, oh my goodness, sorry, someone's phoning me right now. Is that okay? Does that mess up the recording?
No, it's okay.
Okay. So I woke up the Sunday morning, and I just felt like kind of weak when I woke up. And I remember when I was making coffee and I was like holding my coffee mug, my grip on my coffee mug just wasn't the same. My hand felt kind of weak. And I had a flatmate who was also an overseas player from New Zealand. And I asked him how he was feeling after the game the day before. And he was saying he's also like kind of feeling tired and fatigued. So I thought, okay, cool, this is normal. We're both tired from yesterday's game. We just need to recover today. On that day, it was kind of like the Super Bowl of cricket. It was like the World Cup final. And his country was playing in the final. So he wanted to go like watch the game at a sports bar, and he invited me to go with him. And I just wasn't really feeling up for it. I was just kind of feeling tired and weak and wanting to take a break for that day. So he actually left me at the apartment, and I was on my own watching on the couch. And I remember around lunchtime, I was wanting to get up off the couch to make myself something to eat. As I got up, I had like this buckling sensation in my knees, kind of like when a giraffe is like newly born, or a deer or something, like just kind of like stumbling around trying to find your feet, right? And I had this feeling, and I was like, that's kind of weird, but I got my stride, made myself food, got back on the couch, continued to watch the game. And fortunately, New Zealand lost that game, and they were never supposed to lose that game, actually, because if you had to look at the situation, it was kind of like they should have won easily. It was kind of like a buzzer beater, overtime, like everything kind of thing. They should never have lost that game. And if they had won that game, my flatmate probably would have gone out to celebrate that night, and I would have been in the apartment on my own to die, really, to put it frankly. And fortunately, how things just planned out is like, you can only understand it when you look back, because they ended up losing. He comes back to the apartment, and I tell him, like, I'm feeling super dehydrated. I'm feeling super tired. Even on that day, I tweeted, like, I'm just feeling super dehydrated today. I don't know what's happening. And his girlfriend actually said at that point, I should probably already go to the hospital. And I was trying to be calm. Like, I was like, nah, I'm okay. Let's just order some takeout. I don't know if you know the TV show called Love Island, but I was like, let's just watch Love Island and like relax. I'm fine. Don't worry. So we order some Domino's, watch Love Island, and then it's now time to go to bed. So as I'm trying to get up off the couch, I realized that I actually can't move. I can't get myself off the couch. So I call my flatmate. His name is Callum, and I'm like, Callum, bro, I can't get myself up. Like, I don't know what's going on. He thought I was joking. He was like, dude, just get up. Like, stop playing. And I was like, no, seriously, I actually can't get up. Just like help me. So he goes to the end of the couch. He lifts my legs on the edge of the couch, and he like also feels this dead weight sensation. And he also realizes like I'm not playing. So I just said to him, look, Callum, go to my room, get my duvet, blankets, whatnot, my pillows. I'll sleep on the couch. And I remember these words. I literally said to him, I'm sure I'll wake up and everything will be fine tomorrow. Famous last words. And he brought everything. I ended up sleeping on the couch. Him and his girlfriend went to bed. And then around 2 a.m., I needed to go to the bathroom. But again, I was even weaker at this point. And I was just trying to like find some kind of way to get myself up, but I couldn't. And I ended up falling off of the couch onto the floor. And when I was on the floor is kind of when I realized, okay, something's happening and it's not good. This is when I like began to panic. And I started screaming. I was like, Callum, help, Callum, help, Callum. You didn't hear me. Continued to scream like, Callum, help, Callum, help. You didn't hear me. And we had this little coffee table next to the couch, which my phone was on. So I had to kind of like crawl a little bit to get to the coffee table to like reach for my phone. But literally, as I reached for my phone, I ended up knocking it like off of the table and like further away. And I remember saying to myself, like literally, like, is this happening right now? Like, this is an actual joke. So I crawl to get to my phone. And then fortunately, I call him, he answers. I'm like, Callum, I'm on the floor. I don't know what's going on right now. Please just call an ambulance. And yeah, called the ambulance. They asked me a few questions. He put a pillow under my head on the floor. They were there within 30 minutes, got stretchered off into the ambulance. And that's the last thing kind of I remember before waking up in ICU, really. So it happened kind of fast. It happened within one day. I was healthy, playing a match, to the next day, completely paralyzed, head to toe, unable to communicate in ICU.
My goodness, that's awful. So during the time that you were in the ICU, and I'm not sure like what the turnover point was between getting into the hospital and like beginning physical therapy, but who and what were some of your biggest like support systems and people who were there for you?
Definitely my family. I always say like I knew my family was close and we loved each other, but I didn't realize how much they actually loved me until I went on this traumatic journey. They were there for me. I mean, they flew immediately from South Africa. I was living in Scotland at the time. They flew the next day to come and be bedside with me. My girlfriend, she also flew immediately. She was in fact on holiday with her friends in Zanzibar, and she left the holiday to come to Scotland, close to the North Pole, and be bedside, with me, even though I couldn't communicate or talk, or no one knew what was going on really. My friends from the city, they showed up in a big way. My teammates, the doctors, the nurses, there were priests that would come and pray for me every single day. So I would say, given that, I was quite lucky that I had a very good support system that were there for me from day one. So I can never say I felt like I didn't have the support, because I really did have it from the beginning. And that's really what gave me the energy to keep fighting, I would say.
And once you started physical therapy, what was the hardest part about that for you?
For the first hurdle for me, was coming back to what I had said earlier, was the acceptance part. Because for a long time, I was focusing on who and what I was and how I used to be and the life that I used to have. and I wasn't accepting the situation I was in right now. And there was a period of time where I literally would lose track of like reality and like being in this different kind of world because I was on so much medication, morphine, and it put me to sleep sometimes. So I would like switch in and out of this like real world and like this other world where I thought I'm just gonna wake up and everything's gonna be fine. Like I literally had like that delusion for a long time. And I kept thinking it's gonna, like, I'm just gonna wake up and I'm fine and it's all like one bad dream. But you can only do that for so long, you know? And I was asking myself, you know, why me? Why this God? You know, I used to pray, I used to go to church, my faith was quite strong, you know, and I questioned God, you know, like why put me in the situation. But I think at some point, you know, my mind just changed. And instead of asking like, why God, why me, and focusing on what I used to be and who I was, I then began to accept and ask myself, why not me, in the sense that what makes me so special as a person that someone like you, Destiny, needs to suffer this pain I'm suffering now and I mustn't suffer it. You know, why should someone else go through this and not me? Like what makes me so special? I'm just a human being at the end of the day, you know? And once that penny dropped, I think my mindset shifted and I began to focus on, okay, this is my situation. This is what's going on right now. The doctors used to come in every single day and tell me, you will recover, but it's going to be a long journey. It's going to be slow. It's going to take a while. Your life won't be the same. And I kind of just ignored it for a long time, but then I started to just actually take it in and begin to focus on like, okay, I'm going to be here for a long time. This is not going to go away overnight. There's no magic pill I can take that's going to make me better tomorrow. So what can I do? What advice can I take from them that's going to take me from point A to point B and from point B to point C kind of thing on a day-to-day basis? The most frustrating thing, especially while I was in ICU for the first 3 months, was the fact that I was not able to communicate. You know, I couldn't talk. There was a board with letters like A to Z, right? And in order for me to spell out any word or any feeling, they would have to like go with like their finger and like go on a letter, and then I'd have to like blink, and like that's the letter. So even to spell a word like hot, HOT, it took like 10 minutes because we had to do this exercise, or cold, or I need water, or this, you know? So that was definitely the most frustrating thing, not being able to communicate how I felt internally and what I needed and what I wanted, but having like the full cognizance and full brainly functions. I was completely fine internally, but I couldn't, my body, my nerves, they couldn't communicate that. And essentially I was like a prisoner in my own body. So yeah, I'd say the only time I really began to even move forward somewhat was when that acceptance journey started, and I was more open and receptive to the help, you know, that I was getting.
I like what you said in terms of asking and being, it's a very insightful perspective of why not you. So given that you were struggling with communication, something that we really take for granted, it's as simple as me having a conversation with you right now, what's something that brought you comfort when you were really, like you said, trapped in your own body?
For a long time, I didn't feel comfort. I'll be honest. I wasn't always resilient in terms of my mindset. I wasn't always positive. You know, I was depressed for a long time. I was angry for a long time. I was resentful. In fact, I remember wishing that the doctor would just like put me to sleep until it was over, like until I would just wake up and everything was back to normal, even if that took a year. Like I remember like wishing for that, you know. Um, it's a tricky one because you never quite get used to this. You know, you never get used to the fact that your life's going to be completely different, and you can't communicate the way you know how to communicate. But you also realize, you know, as you go along, that being ill doesn't only impact you, it impacts the people around you, you know, as well in different ways. So I wanted to prove the people that were supporting me right. You know, I wanted to keep fighting. I wanted to find ways to get better. I wanted to find ways of communicating. I wanted to, you know, invest in the healthcare that I was getting, the people that were putting in hours to keep my life alive. You know, I wanted to actually, okay, you know, let me start putting in that effort. Let me start trying. You know, let me fight for my life as much as these people around me are here fight, like supporting me. You know, and let me tell you, like ICU is not a place you ever want to be. I mean, I would see people dying in beds next to me, across from me, and you could see when they were going to die. Like I could tell, I could see it in their eyes. Like I could see in their eyes when they gave up, and 3-4 days later they were dead, you know, and they would be calling the family and closing the curtain and, you know, saying their goodbyes. And that was that. And then I was like, wow, like this is really where I am right now. Like if I don't get my mind frame out of, you know, this sluggish depression spiral it's in, that's going to be me, and my family's going to be saying goodbye to me, you know. So I just think I remember actually telling myself that this is not how you go out. Like I remember saying those words to myself. I was like, nah, come on, like this is not the way it ends for you. Like not like this, you know. I was kind of like, it's got to be a bit more than this, you know. You can't be healthy the one day and then the next day all of a sudden you're paralyzed and you die, you know. I was like, nah, it's not like this. So I think when I started having those internal talks with myself, and really encouraging myself and speaking life into myself, then I started to see a lot more improvement. You know, over time, my head, my fingers, my body, my mouth started moving. I moved from this communication board. They gave me like this computer screen where it had all the letters, and I could like use my eyes to like spell words and sentences, and had like a voice, and I could like focus my eyes on it, and then like I could like speak in this like mechatronic voice to like communicate, you know. And those became the important wins for me, you know. That's what I started looking forward to. Maybe my thumb moved on the Monday, by the Friday my pinky moved, you know. Like I was starting to get excited for these little victories that I was searching for on a day-to-day, week-to-week sort of basis. So yeah, that's what I would say with respect to that.
I don't know if I shared this with you at any point, but I came across your video on ESPN, your progress video. And so you could have taken it slow, you could have babied yourself and, you know, ultimately slow down your progress. And looking at you now, besides seeing that video, I wouldn't have ever guessed that you've gone through something so traumatic. So what was your driving force to like push yourself to make yourself stronger? Was it the fact that you weren't ready for your light to go out, or were you fighting for your family? Like what was that?
So for a long time, I mean, I was in hospital for a total of 9 months, right? So out of that 9 months, for 7 of those 9 months, I was completely off of all public eye, social media, anything. I was like completely like, I don't know if you watch Batman at all, but like I was in like Nanda Parbat vibes. Like I was I was in the mountains just like trying to get myself back together somewhat, and trying to, like I said, accept all that was going on, and, you know, just living in my bubble essentially, for a long time. And eventually, you know, I got to a point where I became more comfortable with sharing my progress and what was going on, because I struggled even the first couple of times I went to physiotherapy. And I remember they took me like out of my bed. There was like a machine, because I was paralyzed, so they'd like lift me, and then the machine would like put me in a chair and they'd take me to the physiotherapy room. And I remember the first time I saw myself in a mirror, I was so shocked. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. You know, I'd known myself how I was before, and then I see myself in this. I even asked the therapist to turn me away, like from the mirror, and if we could do the training, like not facing the mirror, because I couldn't look at myself, you know. Um, and I think those were the challenges, you know, those were the biggest challenges for me, just fully understanding and accepting what has happened, and to fully acknowledge that it's going to be a long journey and that my life would not be the same, you know. Because until you accept, you will always be in denial, and you won't look for solutions. You will just look at the problem. But the accepting hurdle is so important, because when you accept, you open everything else up, kind of thing. You look for the, okay, what solutions, what can I do now, am I making progress? You're more open to the other side, let's say. But if you allow the denial and the depression and all of that to hold you back, you're never gonna see the answers of where you can get yourself. And I would describe what happened to me, two people, in this way. Have you ever, like let's say you worked on an assignment for college or something, right? You had this big assignment and it's taken you months. You're writing your thesis and it's taken you months to put work into this thing, right? And you put all this work in and you have to submit in the next couple of days, and you didn't save for some reason, and boom, the power goes out and everything's gone. Everything is lost. You get like the sinking feeling, right? Like, I don't know if this has ever happened to you before, but you get this like unbelievable sinking feeling. Now, I had that same sinking feeling, but relating to my life in general, because I felt as if I'd built my life to a certain point, and pretty much everything that I wanted at that stage of life I had, and I kind of just felt like it got taken away overnight without my control, and I was just starting over, and I had no choice but to start over. So it just kind of came down to whether or not I wanted to like go fetch my life, or I was just going to allow what happened to define me, and it would be an excuse at the end of the day as to why I didn't get to where I wanted to get, because I could always just say, oh no, I didn't get to where I wanted to get because I got sick then. Or, like I had to decide what story do I want for myself? Like, do I still want to get to where I want to get regardless of this thing, and be like, oh yeah, that happened, and it was tough, but I still got through it and I got to where I wanted to be? Or, nah, I didn't make it. I didn't do this. I didn't do that because I got sick and it just derailed me. So I just decided that I wanted the first story and not the latter at the end of the day.
I want you to describe to me what it was like when you first, like your first inkling of progress, whenever you realized, like, I am working and I'm getting better. What was that like for you?
Well, I was just relieved that the treatment was working because for a long time, my body wasn't receptive to the treatments they were giving me. And that like kind of also made me panic a bit more, so I think the word I'd describe that feeling would be relief. Relief that actually what the doctors were saying to me was true, that I would get better, that I wouldn't be permanently the way I was. It was, in fact, my thumb was the first thing that moved, just a little, like literally just a little flicker. And I think that gave me the hope that actually what these people are saying to me is true, and that I will eventually be okay. And from then on in, I was just looking forward to what was next. But I think the hardest thing as well was just like not being able to eat. Like I had a tube from my nose to my stomach where I was pretty much getting all my medication, my fluids, my food, everything. And I used to see the other patients eating and drinking, and I just used to like go crazy. Like I used to have like dreams of like being under a waterfall and just like water like just coming through my mouth like crazy, because I just couldn't eat for such a long time. And I remember they had to teach me how to like eat and swallow from scratch from the beginning. I had to like take teaspoons of water, then teaspoons of like milk, and then teaspoons of like soup, and you like build it up, and you're like a big baby essentially, learning how to do every single thing from start. So I think I was just in the beginning, when the little signs started appearing, I was just kind of relieved and looking forward to the next thing, the next milestone.
So after you've been diagnosed, you've gone through the process of getting yourself to where you can do normal functions. How do you feel like you've grown as a person?
I think for sure something like this, you have no choice but to learn patience, because the illness forces you to be patient. As I mentioned earlier, there's no magic pill that speeds up the process. You have to live it and feel it every single day. You have to go through it every single day. I told you that I wish the doctors put me to sleep. and woke me up when it was all over. But that wasn't the case. I had to live it every single day. So I think patience is definitely a huge lesson that I took out of this journey. And then secondly, I'd say appreciating the simple things. Not to say that I didn't appreciate life before, because I was quite a self-motivated, driven, sort of a goal-oriented kind of person either way, and I worked pretty hard for everything that I had. But definitely the simple independencies, because for a long time I needed to rely on others for everything. I mean, nurses had to come wash me, brush my teeth, take me to the bathroom, feed me. If anything I needed to request it from somebody else before I could get it. And now the fact that I'd say I'm like 70% recovered, but I'm mostly independent. I don't rely on anyone really. Yes, there are those bits and bobs that I might not be able to do right now, but for the most part, I mean, I can live my life, and that's been unbelievably liberating, because even as humans, as individuals, we struggle with, especially when you're independent, you struggle with receiving help. In the beginning, I struggled a lot with receiving that help, having people just so in my space and having to depend on them so much. And then you eventually get to a point where, okay, you accept the help, but then you become too dependent on it, and then you go through a phase where now you have to remove the dependence and become independent again. So you go through these cycles, of independence, dependence, independence. Sorry, what's my girlfriend calling me again? And you just go through these cycles of dependence, independence, dependence, independence. And it's difficult transitioning from each phase, but it's necessary. And yeah, I just think I appreciate being independent again. And I also appreciate the fact that I learned how to be dependent and accept help and work within a team environment, or just allowing people to help me. I never used to have that before.
So, like you said, you're 70% recovered. Where do you go from here? What's next? How do you plan on going about the rest of your life?
So, look, in the beginning, I definitely thought that I probably had a shot at getting back to my professional career in sport. Now, I'm not so sure about that anymore. But fortunately, I do have my education behind me. I've got a degree in economics and law, double major, and I've done some postgraduate studies in investments and business. So I've got the base to start the next chapter of my life, which I'm currently doing right now. I'm working in retail, property development, and investment. So pretty much the company I work for, we build and manage shopping malls, around South Africa. So it's quite cool to be a part of that. And it's funny how I even got into that industry. There was an old man in his 70s who'd come and visit me in hospital like 2-3 times a week, and just kind of like encourage me. And he had the same illness as I did a few years back, so he was just kind of like giving me advice and guiding me. And over time, he kind of like asked me, what are my plans, and I was like, well, he said, you're definitely not going to be an athlete anymore, and you need to accept that. And I was like, yeah, I know. I still need to kind of figure it out. And then he was like, well, come and work for me. And turns out he's just a super successful property developer, and I've been working there now for almost a year and a half, in fact. So definitely completely different chapter for me, different journey, but looking forward to it. And, even outside of my professional career, I think it's important for me to speak about this illness, because so many people don't really know about it. And only 1 in 100,000 people ever get it in life. And even with that being said, there's a lot of people that don't have access to the resources that you need in order to recover, essentially, because it's one thing to go to hospital and like they can save your life, but you need everything else to kind of get your quality of life back. So I think I'm definitely looking into how I can create awareness around this illness and create access really to the resources that you're going to need, because being sick is quite expensive. And I'm lucky that I had, the right medical insurance, the right supporters, the right people, supporting me all along the way. I'm very lucky. If I didn't have that, it would be a completely different recovery journey than what it's been, So I do realize that I've been fortunate in that sense. So yeah, I'd say that's probably what's in the immediate future for me. Just building my life back, regaining that independence, and really just getting a good quality of life back, like I used to have, or even better.
And I'm coming down to the last couple of questions that I have for you. So, what is something that you want our readers to take away when they read about you and your story?
I think the important thing for me, and it's difficult for me to I'll never impose anything upon anyone, this is just based on my experience, in that, as I mentioned to you earlier, there was two kind of stories I could have had, right? I could have had the story of, because of this situation, it totally derailed me from what my life goals were and where I ended up where I wanted to end up and where I was supposed to be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It could have been an excuse, right? And no one would have blamed me for it. I could have gone through life with that excuse, and everyone would have felt sorry for me, right? And understood. Or I could choose the other story that I'm walking on that journey on right now, where in spite and despite of what has happened to me, I'm still gonna get to where I want to go. And I would say, for me personally, that's been the best attitude to have, because as a result of having that attitude, everything else that I've been able to piece together as I get my life back on track has come from having that attitude, has come from being positive, has come from looking at the solutions rather than focusing on the problems, has come from, learning how to accept help and not always trying to figure it out on my own, and accepting support and working with people, just being open and not closed off to what's going on, and also to be realistic, to be extremely realistic and real in terms of where you are and what you need to do to take you to where you want to be. I think that's important, coming back to all the way back when I first accepted, okay, this is what it is. How do I get myself from point A to point B? And if I didn't accept where I was never going to be able to start mind mapping that road. So maybe something along those lines, I would say.
And in closing, is there anything that you want to just share with the world, or anything that you want to say that you feel like I haven't already touched on, or you just feel like is important?
Yeah, I'd say it's all about being stubborn with your vision, right? Like if you see yourself being somewhere one day, you gotta be stubborn with it. Like you gotta protect what you want for yourself. You gotta be stubborn with it, right? But I would say you have to be flexible in the way that you're gonna get there. It's not gonna be a straight line. It might not be the way in which you envisioned or planned for it to be. It might take longer than you expect. It might be faster than you expect. But so I'd say be stubborn with what you want and where you want to end up for yourself, because it's important. Because when you're stubborn about it, you fight for it. You don't give up easily on it. But be flexible in the ways and means of how it may turn out for you. Be flexible, be dynamic, adapt to change, but don't change the end goal. That's what I would say.
Thank you for listening. Continue to listen and support our journalism at WeINSPIREmovement.org. Hit us up on all our social media for daily inspiration. Nothing but the good news.